Everyone knows about David and Goliath, but did you know Goliath had a brother who sought revenge? This is the part of the story they don't tell you, and it's more intense than you think. The battle wasn't over after Goliath fell. His brother came for blood. The Philistines would not forget their fallen champion, and soon David would face an even greater threat. But this time, he would not be the one to strike the final blow. Stay with me as we uncover a battle even deadlier than David and Goliath. A battle that tested the strength of Israel's greatest warriors and revealed a shocking twist that many have overlooked. Welcome to Bible Stories. If you love deep biblical revelations and untold Bible stories, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss an episode. And if you're ready, let's dive into the story. It was a moment that shook the entire battlefield. A young shepherd boy, armed with nothing but a sling and 5 smooth stones, stood before the mightiest warrior of the Philistines. Goliath, the towering giant of Gath, laughed in scorn, but David did not waver. Then David said to the Philistine, "You come to me with a sword and with a spear and with a javelin, but I come to you in the name of the Lord of hosts, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied. This day the Lord will deliver you into my hand." 1 Samuel chapter 17, verse 45 to 46. With a single stone, David struck Goliath on the forehead. The giant stumbled, fell, and the earth trembled beneath his weight. The mighty warrior of the Philistines was dead. The Israelites erupted in victory. The fear that had gripped their hearts was shattered. David, once a mere shepherd, had become a hero. With Goliath's own sword, he severed the giant's head and held it high. The Philistines, witnessing the fall of their champion, turned and fled. The battle was won, or so they thought. But what the people of Israel did not know, what David did not yet realize, was that this was just the beginning. For Goliath was not alone. He had brothers, giants, warriors who had fought alongside him, who now burned with a desire for revenge. One of them was named Lahmi, a fearsome giant of Gath, and in his heart he swore an oath of vengeance. The Philistines would not let Goliath's death go unpunished. War was coming, and this time David would not be the only target. Though Goliath had fallen, the war was far from over. The Philistines, humiliated by their champion's defeat, refused to accept their loss. Rage spread through their ranks, and the leaders of Gath gathered in secrecy. They could not allow this insult to go unanswered. Among them stood a warrior unlike any other, a giant more terrifying than Goliath himself. His name was Lahmi, the brother of Goliath. Towering above the soldiers, his muscles rippled with power, and his eyes burned with fury. He had trained alongside Goliath since childhood, watching his brother dominate every battlefield. But now his brother lay dead, slain by a mere shepherd boy. To Lahmi, this was an unforgivable disgrace. The Philistine king turned to Lahmi, his voice cold and filled with anger. "Your brother was our champion. He was our mightiest warrior, and now he is gone. Will you let this insult stand?" Lahmi clenched his fists. "No," he growled. "I will not rest until David is dead. The blood of my brother will be avenged." Word spread through Philistine territory. Lahmi was preparing for war. He was even larger and stronger than Goliath. His armor was thicker, his sword heavier, and his hatred for David deeper. This was not just a battle for honor. This was a battle for vengeance. As written in 1 Chronicles chapter 20, verse 5, "And again there was war with the Philistines, and Elhanan the son of Jair slew Lahmi, the brother of Goliath the Gittite." But this war would not be as simple as before. This time the Philistines had a new strategy. They would not challenge David alone. They would send their mightiest warriors, a legion of giants, sons of the Rephaim, ancient warriors of incredible power. David had defeated one giant, but could he survive an army of them? Years had passed since David's legendary battle with Goliath. The young shepherd had become a mighty warrior, a leader of men, and now, the king of Israel. His victories were many, his name feared by his enemies. But time had taken its toll. He was no longer the same boy who had faced Goliath with a sling and a stone. His body bore the scars of war, and the weight of ruling a nation pressed heavily upon him. But war never rests, and neither do those who thirst for revenge. The Philistines, still wounded by their past defeat, had regrouped. They had not forgotten Goliath's death, and they had not forgotten the name of the man who slew him. And so they came again for war. This time, they did not come alone. They brought giants. They brought warriors bred for battle, sons of the Rephaim, men of monstrous strength and towering height. As written in 2 Samuel chapter 21, verse 15, once again there was war between the Philistines and Israel, and David went down with his men to fight against the Philistines, and he became weary. Among them was Lahmi, the brother of Goliath, but this time he was not alone. Another giant stood beside him, a warrior known as Ishbi-Benob, a descendant of the giants, armed with a spear so massive its weight alone was enough to crush a man, and his target? David himself. The battlefield was chaotic. Israel and the Philistines clashed in a sea of blood and steel. The air was filled with war cries, the clash of swords and the screams of the wounded. David fought bravely, leading his men into battle. But for the first time in his life, he was not the strongest warrior on the field. And Ishbi-Benob, one of the descendants of the giants whose spear weighed 300 shekels of bronze, sought to kill David. 2 Samuel chapter 21, verse 16. The giant's eyes locked onto David. He was not interested in the battle around him. His only goal was to kill the slayer of Goliath. With terrifying speed, Ishbi-Benob charged at David. His massive spear swung down like a falling tree, aiming for the king's chest. David staggered. He was strong, but not as strong as he once was. His arms ached, his breath was heavy. And then Ishbi-Benob lifted his spear once more, ready to strike the final blow. For the first time since he was a boy, David was helpless. He was about to die. David was no stranger to battle. He had fought countless wars, led mighty armies, and crushed his enemies. But this time, he was not the fearless warrior of his youth. His body was weary, his breath short. The battlefield was a blur of chaos, steel clashing, and the cries of fallen soldiers. And in the midst of it, a giant stood before him. Ishbi-Benob, a warrior of monstrous size, towered over the exhausted king. His spear, massive, heavy, and deadly, was already raised for the final blow. There was no time to react, no strength left to fight back. David was trapped. As written in 2 Samuel chapter 21, verse 16, and Ishbi-Benob, one of the descendants of the giants, whose spear weighed 300 shekels of bronze, sought to kill David. David stumbled, barely dodging the first strike, but he was too slow. Ishbi-Benob snarled and lifted his weapon again, this time aiming directly at David's heart. This was it, the mighty king of Israel, the man who had slain Goliath, the warrior who had ruled a nation, was about to fall. Then, a blur of motion, a shadow raced across the battlefield. A warrior, sword drawn, leaped between David and the giant. In the blink of an eye, Abishai, son of Zeruiah, had arrived. His blade met the giant's spear with a deafening clash, sending sparks into the air. But Abishai, son of Zeruiah, came to his aid and struck the Philistine and killed him. 2 Samuel chapter 21, verse 16. With a mighty roar, Abishai lunged forward, his sword cutting through the thick hide of Ishbi-Benob. The giant let out a deafening cry, and then he fell. David, breathing heavily, looked up at his loyal warrior. Abishai's eyes burned with fierce determination. He had just saved the life of Israel's greatest king. But this moment changed everything. The men of Israel rushed to David's side, and what they told him would alter the course of his life forever. Then David's men swore to him, saying, "You must never go out to battle with us again, lest the lamp of Israel be extinguished." 2 Samuel chapter 21, verse 17. David, once the fearless warrior who had led Israel's armies into victory, now stood a step away from death. His men knew it. They could not risk losing him. They could not allow the light of Israel to be put out by the sword of a Philistine giant. For the first time in his life, David was told he could no longer fight. He was no longer just a warrior. He was a king, a symbol, a leader whose survival mattered more than the battlefield. The battle between Israel and the Philistines was far from over. Though Ishbi-Benob had been slain and David had stepped back from combat, a storm was still brewing, a storm named Lahmi, the brother of Goliath. The Philistines, humiliated by their defeat, refused to surrender, and leading their forces was none other than Lahmi, the avenger of his brother. And again there was war with the Philistines, and Elhanan the son of Jair slew Lahmi, the brother of Goliath the Gittite. 1 Chronicles chapter 20, verse 5. Lahmi was no ordinary warrior. He was taller, stronger, and more skilled in battle than even Goliath. His armor, forged in the fire of Philistine blacksmiths, gleamed under the scorching sun. His spear, thicker and deadlier than his fallen brothers, could tear through an entire squad of soldiers. And now his rage burned hotter than ever. His brother had been humiliated by David, a mere shepherd boy. Lahmi would stop at nothing to restore the honor of his family. He marched toward the battlefield, his deep voice echoing through the valley. "Bring me the king of Israel. Bring me David. I will have my vengeance." But David was no longer fighting. The king of Israel would not face him. Instead, standing before Lahmi was a new warrior, a mighty soldier of David's army, Elhanan, the son of Jair. And Elhanan, the son of Jair, slew Lahmi, the brother of Goliath the Gittite. 1 Chronicles chapter 20, verse 5. Lahmi charged forward, his massive spear aiming straight for Elhanan's heart. But Elhanan was quick. He dodged the attack, rolling to the side as Lahmi's spear slammed into the earth with a deafening crash. Elhanan fought with precision. He wasn't just any soldier. He was one of David's mighty men, a warrior chosen by God to defend Israel. He moved with the skill of a seasoned fighter, his sword flashing like lightning. But Lahmi was stronger than anyone could have imagined. He swung his massive sword, narrowly missing Elhanan's head. The ground shook beneath his footsteps, and his fury was unmatched. As written in 2 Samuel chapter 22, verse 35, "He trains my hands for war so that my arms can bend a bow of bronze." Elhanan was trained by God himself for this very moment. He knew this was no ordinary fight. This was divine warfare. With a final burst of speed, Elhanan dodged Lahmi's attack and swung his sword with all his might. The blade sliced through the air and struck its target. The mighty Lahmi, brother of Goliath, lay slain on the battlefield. His towering form crumpled, his spear fallen from his grasp. The battle was over. As the dust settled, the warriors of Israel stood in awe. Another giant had fallen, not by the hand of David, but by the hand of one of his mighty men. "The Lord is my strength and my shield. My heart trusts in him, and he helps me." Psalm chapter 28, verse 7. The prophecy of David's anointing had been fulfilled once again. God protected his chosen king. He had raised mighty warriors to stand in David's place and defeat the enemies of Israel. The Philistine, seeing their great warrior slain, fled in terror. The battlefield was now Israel's, and the reign of David continued under God's divine favor. But what does this story teach us today? What can we learn from the fall of Lahmi and the victory of Elhanan? Many people believe that David's story ended with Goliath, but the truth is, it was never just about one giant. The battle against evil is never over. There will always be another enemy, another challenge, another Lahmi waiting in the shadows. But just as God protected David, he will protect you too. Why was this battle so important? Why does the Bible record not just Goliath's fall, but also Lahmi's? Because it teaches us a deeper truth. Defeating one giant doesn't mean the war is over. David defeated Goliath, but years later his enemies came back, stronger and more determined than before. Many are the afflictions of the righteous, but the Lord delivers him out of them all. Psalm chapter 34, verse 19. The Philistines refused to accept their defeat. Lahmi and his fellow giants rose up to challenge David again. But God had already prepared a way for victory through Elhanan and the mighty men of Israel. This isn't just history. This is a lesson for our own lives. Just like David, we all face giants, challenges, struggles, enemies that seem impossible to defeat. But here's the truth. When one giant falls, another may rise. The devil never stops attacking. Temptations return, fears creep in, Doubts try to shake your faith, but God's strength is always greater. No weapon formed against you shall prosper, and every tongue which rises against you in judgment you shall condemn. Isaiah chapter 54 verse 17. David didn't need to fight every battle himself. God raised up warriors to stand in his place. And the same is true for us today. God will send help in ways you never expected. So let me ask you, what giants are you facing today? Is it fear, doubt, a difficult situation that seems impossible, a battle that's making you feel weak, just like David felt when he almost fell in battle? Here's the good news. You don't have to fight alone. God is with you, and if you trust in Him, He will give you the strength, the weapons, and the people you need to win. The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still. Exodus chapter 14, verse 14. David's story teaches us one final truth. It was never about his strength. It was always about God's power. Even when giants rise against you, put your trust in God. Stand firm in your faith, and He will lead you to victory. Just as He did for David, just as He did for Elhanan, just as He will do for you. If this story amazed you, hit that like button. If you want more untold Bible stories that reveal the hidden truths of Scripture, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. And now I want to hear from you. What did you learn from this battle? Have you ever faced a giant in your life? Drop a comment below and let's discuss. Thanks for watching.